The trail was quiet except for the crunch of shoes against gravel. Marion Holt adjusted her scarf around her neck as the wind swept through the trees. She was 67, her knees aching more than she cared to admit, but today felt important. Her daughter, Cassandra, had invited her on this hike. Marion took it as a rare chance to reconnect. "Are you keeping up, Mom?" Cassandra asked without turning her head. "I'm fine, sweetheart," Marion replied, forcing a smile, though each step burned. Marion had raised Cassandra alone since her husband died decades ago. She'd worked long nights, sold jewelry that once belonged to her mother, and even gave up her dream of traveling in retirement. Also, Cassandra could finish college without debt. For Marion, family came before everything. That's why this hike, this invitation, felt like hope. She thought maybe her daughter wanted to talk, maybe bridge the cold distance that had grown since Cassandra married Adrian Weston. Adrian came from money. His family, the Westons, lived in a world of polished cars, black-tie dinners, and cruel little smirks when Marion visited their house in her modest clothes. Cassandra had changed after marrying him. She started wearing expensive perfume, speaking in a sharper tone, and answering her mother's calls less and less. Still, Marion held on, telling herself, she's just busy, she'll come back around. The trail curved upward toward the cliffside. Marion slowed, breathing heavily, but Cassandra pushed forward quickly, almost impatiently. When Marion finally caught up, her daughter was standing at the edge, gazing down at the valley below. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Cassandra said, her voice flat. Marion nodded, stepping closer to admire the view. The world stretched wide and green, sunlight bouncing off a river far below. For a moment, Marion felt peace. But then she noticed Cassandra staring, not at the view, but at her. Her daughter's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Before Marion could speak, Cassandra's hands shot forward. A hard shove. Marion's body lurched forward, her feet sliding on the gravel. The edge disappeared beneath her. "Hope you can fly," Cassandra shouted, her voice slicing through the air. Marion screamed as the world flipped. Branches whipped against her arms, rocks scraped her skin, and the valley roared beneath her. She braced for the crushing impact of death, only to slam hard onto a narrow ledge halfway down. Pain exploded in her shoulder and hip. She gasped, stunned that she was still breathing. Above her, Cassandra's laughter echoed. For a chilling second, Marion saw her daughter's figure lean over the edge, watching. Then Cassandra straightened, dusted off her hands, and walked away. Marion lay there, winded and shaking. The betrayal cut deeper than the bruises. Her daughter hadn't slipped, hadn't panicked, she had planned. She had wanted her mother gone. For minutes that stretched like hours, Marion fought the pain and pulled herself up against the rock wall. Every muscle screamed, but she refused to give up. Slowly, carefully, she found footholds and began edging along the cliff, searching for a way down. Each step reminded her of sacrifices. The nights sewing clothes to pay bills, the birthdays when she gave Cassandra the biggest slice of cake and told herself she wasn't hungry, the envelope of savings she emptied to cover Cassandra's wedding dress. And this is what I get. A shove. A laugh. A daughter who wanted me dead. Tears blurred her vision, but she pressed on. Hours later, scratched, bloodied, and trembling, Marion found a sloping path that led her down to the base of the mountain. A hiker's truck was parked nearby. The man inside stared wide-eyed when he saw her condition, but Marion waved off his questions. "Just take me to town, please," she whispered. The ride was silent. Marion's thoughts raced faster than the wheels on the road. She could call the police, she could scream, she could collapse into grief. But no, not yet. Cassandra thought she was gone. She thought her mother was buried in the valley. Marion's lips trembled as she whispered to herself, "Not yet. I'll face her first." When the truck dropped her near her street, Marion walked home slowly, each step heavy but steady. She cleaned herself up, wiped the blood, changed her torn clothes, and brewed a pot of tea. Then she sat in the living room, waiting for her daughter to come home, waiting to see her face when she realized the truth. The house was quiet. The clock in the hallway ticked like a slow heartbeat. Marion set 2 teacups on the coffee table and adjusted the lamp so the light fell softly across the room. She had washed the dirt from her face and changed into a clean cardigan. The hot water stung the cuts on her arms, but she didn't flinch. She moved carefully, like a woman setting a stage. Cassandra still had a key. She had kept it for emergencies. Marion never asked for it back. Tonight, that choice felt strangely useful. Outside, a car door closed. Then heels on the front steps. The lock turned. Cassandra stepped in with a bright voice that sounded a little too loud. "Mom, you here?" she called, dropping her keys into the ceramic dish by the door. "I was worried. You weren't answering your phone." Marian did not stand. She lifted her eyes and said, calm as a stone, "I'm in the living room." Cassandra walked in and froze. The color left her face, as if someone had turned a dimmer switch. For a moment, she looked like a stranger wearing her daughter's face. Then the mask slid on. "Oh my God," Cassandra said, breathy and soft. "You're okay." I've been trying to find you." Marian pointed at the chair across from her. "Sit." Cassandra sat. Her hands floated above her knees, unsure where to land. Her nails were perfect. The skin around her thumb was clean, no sign of dirt. But her boots told a different story. Fresh mud. A pale trace of reddish dust across the heel. The same dust from the cliff's path. Marian poured tea for both of them. The steam rose, smelling like peppermint and warmth. "Sugar?" she asked. "No," Cassandra said quickly. "Mom, what happened to you? Are you hurt?" "You look," she swallowed, eyes flicking to the faint cut at Marian's hairline. "Did you fall?" Marian tasted the tea. It was a small, quiet thing, and it gave her time. "I went hiking today," she said. With me," Cassandra replied, the word catching like a fishbone. Marian nodded. "Yes, with you." Silence stretched between them. The clock ticked. A car passed outside and faded away. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator clicked on. "I slipped," Marian said. "Or at least, I think that's the story I'm supposed to tell." Cassandra forced a laugh. "What?" "No, Mom, you scared me. You were walking so close to the edge. I tried to grab you, but—" "You pushed," Marian said. She did not raise her voice. The sentence lay on the table between them like a heavy stone. "Both hands. And you said, 'Hope you can fly.'" Cassandra stared. A tiny tremor moved through her lower lip. I would never, Mom, listen to yourself. You've had a shock. You're confused. You probably fell and you imagined." "I heard you laugh," Marian said. Cassandra's gaze darted to the door and back. "I ran for help." "You didn't," Marian replied. "No one went to the ranger station. No one called me. I checked my phone. I checked the time. I cleaned my wounds. I sat here for an hour and listened for sirens. Nothing." Cassandra shifted in her seat. I called Adrian," she said. "I panicked. That's why I came here. I wanted to make sure you were safe." Marian watched her carefully. The lie was neat and simple, like a ribbon tied badly, easy to see. "Do you remember the blue scarf I wore?" Marian asked. Cassandra blinked. "What?" "The scarf," Marian said. "You bought it for me last winter. It caught on a branch when I fell. It hung there above the ledge like a flag. You looked down at it. You looked at me." Her voice softened, something hot and raw coming through. "You looked at me." Cassandra's throat worked. "Mom." "Why?" Marian asked. The word was small, but in it was every long night, every sacrificed plan, every quiet pride in a daughter she had loved too much to see clearly. "Why did you do it?" Cassandra pressed her palms together, fingertips whitening. "You're blowing this out of proportion. You're making it sound like I wanted you to." She swallowed the last word. "We were arguing. You said hurtful things. You accused Adrian of looking down on you. It was emotional. Maybe we both lost our balance." Marian leaned back. The lamplight drew a soft circle around her face. She could feel her heart beating, steady and strong. She folded her hands in her lap so Cassandra would not see them shake. "I don't remember arguing," Marian said. "I remember you smiling. I remember the wind. I remember the valley. And I remember your hands." They sat like that for a long moment, two women linked by blood and history, separated by a drop no rope could cross. "Where's Adrian now?" Marian asked. Cassandra looked away. "On his way." "Of course," Marian said. She reached for the second cup and set it closer to Cassandra. "Drink before it gets cold." Cassandra did not touch it. The mud drying on her boots flaked onto the rug, small red-brown crumbs like dried leaves. She brushed at them, then stopped, noticing the motion made more of a mess. "I raised you to tell the truth," Marian said. "Even when it hurts." "You raised me to survive," Cassandra snapped, then caught herself, the sharpness hanging in the quiet. She forced her voice lower. "Mom, I love you. You know that. Today was an accident." Marian let the word sit between them. Accident. A word people used when they wanted to wash their hands. "Do you remember the day I sold my mother's bracelet?" Marian asked softly. You were 15. We needed money for your tutoring before finals. You cried and told me you'd pay me back one day. Cassandra stared into the steam of her untouched tea. I was a kid. You're 32 now, Marian said. Old enough to know what your hands are doing. Headlights swept the front windows. A door closed. Footsteps on the walk. Cassandra stood too quickly, chair legs scraping wood. Adrian, she said, relief and fear braided together. The door opened. Adrian Weston stepped in, crisp coat, impatient eyes. He paused when he saw Marian, and for a brief, unguarded second, annoyance flickered across his face, like a man who'd expected the end of a problem and found it still sitting on the couch. Marian, he said smoothly. We've been worried. Marian nodded once. I can see that. Adrian came into the living room and kissed his wife's temple. How are you feeling? He asked Marian, tone careful and professional, as if they were at a work event. Cassandra said there was a scare. A scare, Marian repeated. Yes, that's a word for it. Adrian's gaze drifted to the faint bruise at her temple. He opened his hands in a bland, calming gesture. Accidents happen on trails. We should get you checked. Concussions can make memories fuzzy. Marian looked from one face to the other. She felt the ache in her bones, the edge of the ledge under her feet, the wind against her back, all of it clear. Not fuzzy at all. She set her teacup down. Then she reached behind the lamp and placed two things on the table. A thick envelope with her lawyer's letterhead and her phone. She didn't touch either. She let them sit where both could see. Sit, Marian said again, voice steady. Both of you. Cassandra hesitated. Adrian's jaw tightened. Then they sat. Marian folded her hands once more and let the silence gather its weight. The room held 3 people, but only one of them was calm. I came home first, she said, eyes on her daughter. And I have something you both need to hear. The clock ticked. The steam thinned. Outside, the wind changed. Inside, no one moved. The lamp glowed softly, but the air in the living room had turned heavy, almost suffocating. Adrian Weston leaned back in his chair, crossing one leg over the other, feigning control. Cassandra sat stiff, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles looked white. Marian remained calm, but her eyes held something sharp and unshakable. She placed her palm on the thick envelope lying between them. Do you know what this is? She asked quietly. Cassandra shook her head quickly, too quickly. Mom, please. Don't make this bigger than it is. It's already big, Marian said, tapping the envelope with a steady finger. It's my will. Updated last month. Adrian's gaze sharpened. His smooth expression cracked, just for a second, showing the greed beneath. Your will? Yes, Marian replied, her voice soft, but each word carrying weight. You assumed everything would go to you, Cassandra. The house. My savings. The fund I built slowly over years, the one I never told you about. You thought you'd inherit it all. Cassandra flinched. Mom. I gave it away, Marian cut in. Every cent. The house, the savings, the investments. All of it is going to a women's charity. A place that helps girls who don't have anyone to protect them. Girls who need the kind of help I once thought I was giving you. Cassandra's lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked like a child again, caught in the act, searching for words that might undo the truth. Adrian's face hardened. His arm, draped casually over the chair a moment ago, now gripped the armrest so tightly his knuckles matched his wife's. You can't be serious, Adrian said, his tone flat and dangerous. Oh, I'm very serious, Marian said. The papers are signed. The lawyers have copies. And as of tonight, you will never touch a single coin of what I worked for. Cassandra blinked rapidly. Why would you do that? After everything we've been through. Marian let out a hollow laugh, one that came from years of swallowed pain. After everything I've been through? I buried your father alone. I sold my mother's bracelet so you could afford tutoring. I worked nights to put you through college. And today, you put your hands on my back and shoved me off a cliff. The words hit the room like stones dropped in still water. Cassandra's eyes filled, but they were not tears of guilt, they were tears of fear. Mom, I panicked. Marian didn't let her finish. She reached for her phone, unlocked it, and tapped the screen. The room filled with voices. Her daughter's voice. She's old, Adrian. Embarrassing. I can't stand bringing her to family dinners. She'll be gone soon enough, and then it's all ours. Adrian's voice followed. Cold, dismissive. Then speed it up. I'm tired of waiting. The recording played on. Cassandra mocking Marian's modest clothes, Adrian sneering about dead weight. The two of them planning how life would look after she's out of the way. Cassandra shot forward in her chair. You recorded me? How dare you? Marian's gaze did not waver. How dare you? She stopped the recording and set the phone down gently. Do you know what the best part is? Copies of this conversation are already with my lawyer. Another was sent to a trusted friend. If anything happens to me, anything, your words will play in a courtroom. Adrian's jaw clenched. His eyes burned at Cassandra, and in that moment, his mask slipped completely. He wasn't protecting her anymore. He was blaming her. You idiot, he muttered, leaning toward her. You couldn't even keep your mouth shut. You had to run your mouth, and now. Don't you blame me. Cassandra snapped, her voice cracking with panic. You're the one who wanted her gone. You told me to do it. Their words tangled into shouting, two snakes turning on each other. Marian sat still, her hands folded neatly. She had expected anger. She had expected denial. But she hadn't expected to feel so calm, sitting in the storm of her daughter's downfall. Enough, she said finally, her voice cutting through their shouting like a blade. Both of them froze. Marian stood slowly, her knees aching but her back straight. I survived the fall, she said. But the truth is, Cassandra, I lost you long before that. You became someone I don't recognize. Someone who would rather see me dead than embarrassed. Her daughter's eyes glistened. Mom, please. Marian leaned close, her voice steady but cold. When you came home tonight, you thought you'd find an empty house. You thought I'd be gone forever. But I was already here. Waiting. Cassandra shivered, her face pale. Adrian cursed under his breath, gripping his hair. The clock ticked in the silence that followed. Marian turned toward the door. Tomorrow, I go to the police. Tonight, you sit with the truth. Neither Cassandra nor Adrian moved. They sat in their fine clothes, surrounded by the glow of a warm home they thought they would inherit, as the woman they had betrayed walked calmly into the night air, stronger than they had ever imagined. The night outside was sharp and cool, but inside the Weston house, the air had curdled. Cassandra sat trembling in her chair, her hands digging into her lap, while Adrian paced the living room like a trapped animal. The papers on the table, the recordings on Marian's phone, the calm steel in her mother's voice. It all hung heavy, pressing against Cassandra's chest until she could barely breathe. She gave it all away, Adrian muttered, running a hand through his perfectly combed hair, undoing it in frustration. The house, the savings, the fund, everything. Do you understand what that means? You promised me security, Cassandra. You promised me her estate. I didn't know. Cassandra snapped, her voice cracking. She never told me. How was I supposed to know she changed her will? You should have made sure, Adrian spat. You should have waited until the paperwork was in your hands, not botched it like this. Cassandra's throat tightened. She wanted to scream at him, tell him he was just as guilty, that he was the one who whispered about getting rid of her mother, about not waiting forever. But looking at his face now, she realized the truth. Adrian had never loved her. He had only loved what she stood to inherit. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. She had always thought she could control him, keep his approval by keeping him close. Now, with Marian's calm revelation and the recordings floating like a sword over their heads, Cassandra saw how quickly his loyalty shifted. You think I did this for fun? She whispered, her voice hollow. I did this for us. Adrian stopped pacing and stared at her, cold and unblinking. No, he said flatly. You did this for yourself. And you ruined us both. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. It was the sound of something breaking that could never be put back together. The next morning, Marian kept her word. She walked into the police station with slow, deliberate steps. Her body still ached from the fall, her shoulder purple with bruises, but she held her head high. She sat across from the officer and laid out the story. The hike, the shove, the words shouted over the cliff. She played the recordings, every bitter line spoken by Cassandra and Adrian. The officer's expression tightened as the evidence unfolded. He nodded gravely and said, We'll open an investigation immediately. By the time Marian returned home, Cassandra's world was already unraveling. Adrian packed a bag within hours. When Cassandra begged him to stay, he sneered. Stay. With you. You're poison, Cassandra. You couldn't even finish what you started. Then he slammed the door behind him, leaving her sobbing in the hallway. Her phone buzzed constantly, lawyers, detectives, even whispers from her in-laws. The Weston family, the same people who once praised her for marrying well, now treated her like a stain on their name. They called her reckless, foolish, dangerous. They didn't want scandal. They wanted distance. Cassandra locked herself in her room, curled on the floor, and pressed her forehead against her knees. She had thought pushing her mother away would set her free. Instead, it chained her to a nightmare. Marian, meanwhile, sat quietly in her kitchen with a cup of tea, watching the steam rise. She had spent decades putting her daughter's happiness before her own, believing that sacrifice was the shape of love. But now she understood something painfully simple. Love could not survive without respect, and respect had died long before the cliff. She replayed her daughter's words in her mind. "Hope you can fly," and let them fade into the background. What replaced them was not anger, but clarity. When the charity called to confirm the transfer of her estate, Marian smiled softly. "Take care of the girls who need it," she told them. "Give them the start my daughter once had but lost." For the first time in years, Marian felt free. Not because she had punished Cassandra, but because she had finally chosen herself. Weeks later, the case made headlines in quiet corners of town. "Daughter under investigation for attempted murder," the papers read. Neighbors whispered, former friends avoided eye contact, and Cassandra's once polished life collapsed piece by piece. Adrian was gone. The Westons had cut ties. Her reputation, her marriage, her future, all shattered. And Marian? She tended to her garden, sipped her tea, and breathed in the air of a home she no longer needed to defend. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, she stood on her porch and whispered into the wind. "You tried to take everything from me, Cassandra. But in the end, you only lost yourself." Her voice was calm, steady, and unbroken. The fall hadn't ended her life. It had ended the illusion that her daughter still cared. The real fall, the last fall, belonged to Cassandra.